The first Clasico of the season is imminent this Sunday, and on the face of it, performance wise, it's looking spooky for both teams, but there's much more context to it. So, okay, first Clasico of the season, Bernabeu again, same exact date as the first Clasico last season, and also that was at the Bernabeu. But if we go into the team news, when it comes to Real Madrid, they are basically as close as it gets to full strength. They have Rudiger, who I'm pretty sure is confirmed to be out, and I think David Alaba may just about scrape his place in the team for this game from his injury. And then, of course, they're going to have Javi Alonso available because if you go to Barcelona, Hansi Flick won't be available because he got sent off last game versus, I think it was Girona. And that was actually that was diabolical because now they're not going to have Hansi Flick on the touchline Barcelona in the Clasico. But I think it's even worse when you look at the injuries. At first, before I even saw the injuries for Barcelona, before I even read exactly who's out and how many players are out, I was like, okay, I know Jean Garcia's out, I know Gavi's out, I know Lewandowski's out, but someone like Rafinha was expected to come back, and you wake up this morning and you see that he's actually not going to be back at all, let alone start. He won't even be in the squad. And if anything, he might be out for another month. So we don't even know what's going on with that. But overall, Barca have Dani Olmo out, Gavi, Jean Garcia, Ter Stegen out, Lewandowski's going to be out, Rafinha's now confirmed out. And for example, De Jong, Christensen were all they missed a few training sessions this week. Christensen missed the game against Olympiacos, and they missed some training sessions due to illness. I think Kunde also I think missed a training session because of something similar or discomfort. So it's Barca's squad is looking essentially a joke right now. I mean, they're missing one, two, three, four, five, six, and then possibly seven or eight starters if you consider Kunde and Christensen. I think the Young will be available. So Barca is missing a lot of players, including the manager. But at the end of the day, Barca's still going to have important players available. Rashford's still there; he's playing very well. Fermin, Yamal, Pedri, Balde's available. So Barca have their core of players for the most part available. They're just missing a lot of very important players around them. But setup wise, how have both teams looked this year? So if we go to their records, Barca have the one loss on their record. I think it was the one loss. Yeah, they have the one loss and the one draw on the record. Real Madrid just have the one loss. So Madrid are ahead by 2 points. And really, when it comes down to Clasico, you want to win it to have that advantage against your main rivals. So both teams are going to go out trying to win it, of course. That's always what happens in a Clasico. And when we talk about form goes out the window for this encounter, it's mostly about the intensity that the teams will take the game on with. Because of course you can have a bad performance, but the intensity, the motivation to actually fight for every ball, it's always going to be there because of what this encounter is, because of it being El Clasico. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for Barcelona, considering that this season they have been lacking intensity for the most part, and that's the main reason why teams have been getting in behind them a lot, like way more than they should be. If you look at the big chances conceded for Barcelona in most of these games this season, I mean, two, three, four, five, six big chances that other teams have had, and it's not really like it's not you know the biggest of teams. Barca conceded six big chances to Levante, so that's where their issues arise. And you look at Madrid currently, they're not playing too well either. They're a bit more well structured. They're a bit stronger defensively. Real Madrid, they have just a better structure overall in terms of not conceding goals. But I think if you go to the league standings, Barcelona have scored four more goals than Madrid, but have conceded only one more. So it's not like either of these teams is playing out of their minds currently in comparison to the first Clasico last season where Barca was playing out of their mind. But Madrid just look at like a more structured team, and their attack essentially is being carried by Mbappe. And the way they get their goals is not really, they're not some creative monsters. This isn't a chance creation machine, this Madrid team. It's just really when they do find space, the speed demons, mostly Mbappe of their team, manage to capitalize. Barcelona, on the other hand, have to create well. They're not really a team that's going to find the spaces and have a speed demons to capitalize on it because really the only fast players in this team currently are Rashford and Balde. Of course, Rafinha's out, so he won't count this. But it's going to be very interesting to see because, of course, Hansi Flick, he's going to have to use whatever cards he has left for this squad. He has to use them right. He has to know which ones to use. Does he start Eric Garcia? Does he start Araujo? Isn't he has very few cards available, Hansi Flick, and we're going to see how he uses them. I think one of the big losses for this game for Barcelona, outside of Rafinha, I'll talk about Rafinha after, is Joan Garcia because I mean, keeper-wise, Joan Garcia is as a talent, he's just he has a talent, honestly, of possibly becoming one of the best keepers ever. I mean, what he can do as a shot stopper, as a sweeper for through balls of the opposition, as a keeper on the ball, he is just elite level, and it's just a big loss, especially for a team like this Barca team where they have to play a high line, and Madrid are gonna have high paced players trying to run in behind. But Rafinha's possibly the biggest loss out of here. Of course, Lewandowski's out, Gavi's out, Olmo's out. These are all important players, but Rafinha's the biggest loss because the biggest reason of Barcelona's poor performances this season is the lack of intensity. Because this entire Barca system, especially defensively, the high line, the offside trap that they play, relies on pressing from the front. So you can say the high line is an issue, but the reason why it's an issue is because the press from the front is weak. So if the first part of your defense, which is your attack, is weak, your defense will also be weak. Now, Rafinha is a player that leads the press for Barcelona. Lewandowski or the striker doesn't lead it. Yamal never leads it. It's always Rafinha that leads the press because he's a relentless presser and he's quick and he knows how to press well. Him not being here has been one of the biggest issues for Barcelona in the last month or so since he was injured. He hasn't been available until September, I think. And that's why the defense is becoming gradually worse and worse. Not like they started particularly well this season. So it's going to be interesting to see. Does Hansi Flick, I'm not saying for him to completely drop the high line, but does he drop it by maybe a few meters on the pitch? Does he say to his team, even though he's not going to be on the pitch, Hansi Flick, don't run the offside trap as often? We're going to see how it looks, but overall, I think that favorites-wise, if we look at what SofaScore says here, 50% say Madrid win, 42% say Barca win, 8% say a tie. And I have a feeling like that as well. Look, I don't care. Like, okay, yeah, I support Barcelona, but I'm not going to look at it purely off optimism and hope. Realistically, I see Madrid as a slight favorites for this one. And to be honest, I cannot call a score for this. I cannot call a score for this game because both teams, like I said in the start of the video, are looking spooky. Both teams don't look, immaculate this season so far. Both teams have their issues. Both teams have their strengths. Of course, though, Barca have just too many injuries, and that's why I think Madrid are the favorites. But I do see a high-scoring game. I see a draw as well, to be honest. We could see a 2-2, 3-3, 4-4 draw. But I do think Madrid will edge it by 1 goal. Do I see a reality where Barca win? Of course. I mean, that's a very big possibility. But I will probably say something along the lines of maybe Madrid 3-2 or possibly a draw like 3-3, 2-2. I just don't feel confident with Barca's performances. And even though they beat Olympiacos by a 5-goal margin, 6-1, they won. The performance before Olympiacos got that second yellow, which I think was a bit harsh. The performance that Barca had, even after the red card, the first 10 minutes after the red card, it just wasn't convincing. There was so many moments in that game where Olympiacos pinned back Barcelona in their own area. Imagine that. Barcelona at home, UCL tie, Olympiacos pins them back. It just listen to that for a second. It just doesn't make sense. So that's why I don't feel convinced or, I guess, hopeful for Barcelona winning this game, but let's see how they go into it. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult without all these players available, without Hansi Flick on the touchline. But if any manager here on Sunday has a bigger headache, it's going to be Hansi Flick, all things considered. So, yeah, like I said, I see a Madrid win by 1 goal or a draw. Of course, hopefully Barca does win, but a draw or a win here for Barcelona is going to be very important. So, if they can get that win, they'll be 1 point ahead, and we'll see how they look on Sunday. And even if Barca does win, I don't really want to see a win where they're looking like they have done. I want to see a win where they impose themselves, where they don't concede 7 or 8 big chances in a game, where they don't let the opposition get in behind and be on side every 8 minutes. And let's see how they can manage this game without all these players, without the manager on the touchline. So important game. Of course, the first Clasico of the season. We don't know how many there'll be. Maybe a Super Cup in January. Maybe in the Copa del Rey they'll meet. Maybe even the UCL they meet. But the first one's going to be important because last season Barca set the tone, and then they ended up winning all Clásicos in the season pretty dominantly. So let's see how it looks.